I never imagined the poor blind girl they bullied was actually a billionaire. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The whispers. The stares. The way they laughed as if I couldn't feel the heat of their scorn. I was just a girl, wandering the halls of Ridgewood High, clinging to my white cane like it was a lifeline. I thought people would see me, truly see me, instead of the blindness. But all they noticed was my lack of sight. Mia. That was her name. The girl they bullied. She was nothing, according to them. Just a blind girl with a smudge of dirt on her cheek and tangled hair. They would push her aside, call her names, like freak and loser. Every morning, I would watch it unfold, my heart pounding in my chest. I could feel her sadness as if it were mine. It raked against my soul. But something about her was different. There was a tension that hung in the air when she walked past, a hint of mystery swirling around her that I couldn't shake off. Her clothes were worn, thrift store finds, yet there was an elegance to her, something regal despite the humiliation. I once stumbled upon her sketching in the courtyard, lost in a world that only she could see. Her fingers danced on the paper, crafting intricate designs, visions of beauty I wished to touch. It was mesmerizing. I had dreams too. Uncertain, fragile dreams built on just enough hope to keep me going. I wanted to be an artist, to create, to free myself from the chains of expectation. But my world felt so small, the walls of the school closed in around me. And then Mia vanished, just like that. No one questioned it, but I felt the absence deeply, like a part of the sun had been swallowed by the night. The whispers stopped, but the emptiness remained. Until senior year, when rumors exploded she was back. But this time, it was different. I heard she was the heir to a fortune, a billionaire. The girl they tormented transformed into a mysterious figure who glided through the halls like she owned them. A luxurious car pulled up at the school gate, painting over the rough edges. It was a sharp contrast to the girl I used to know. The change twisted the knife deeper. How could she have been hiding all of this behind those blind eyes? It didn't seem possible. I craved to understand. Pieces of a puzzle I couldn't see. My breaths were shallow as I stood at the edge of the schoolyard, watching her. The air was electric, the light buzzing around me as murmurs circled like moths around a flame. How could so much deceit intertwine with truth? I didn't know if I wanted to confront her, or run away, or both. Was she still the same person buried under the layers of gold and riches? But then, she turned, and our eyes met for an instant. It was brief, but her expression flickered. A myriad of emotions played across her face, confusion, sorrow, and something else, fear. My heart raced. What lay beneath the surface of those blind eyes? And what twisted fate would lead the girl I once saw bullied into secrets and shadows? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the pavement as I absorbed the sight of Mia, transformed, exuding a confidence that was palpable. I stood rooted in place, almost invisible among the throng of students milling about, their laughter ringing hollow against the backdrop of my own uncertainty. She walked with purpose, her head held high, and I couldn't help but feel a twinge of envy. Inside, I wrestled with my own insecurities as they twisted alongside my desire to reach out to her. Would she even acknowledge me? Did she remember the girl who stood by helplessly as others tore her down? I wanted to call out her name, but the words caught in my throat like thorns. Suddenly, a voice broke through my thoughts. Look who decided to grace us with her presence, a girl sneered, the laughter of her posse echoing around the courtyard. I turned to see Anna, their fearless ringleader, shoving a shoulder into Mia as she walked past, nearly knocking the sketchpad from her grasp. But instead of crumbling, Mia straightened, her fingers gripping the edges of the pad, a subtle strength emanating from her. "I'm back, and I don't intend to let you push me around anymore," she declared, her voice steady, no trace of the timid girl I once knew. My heart swelled with admiration, even as fear gnawed at the edges of my mind. Could I ever summon that kind of courage? As Mia walked away, brushing off the jeers like dust from her shoulders, I caught a glimpse of something small, something flickering to life amidst the chaos surrounding her. A kindness. A small girl with pigtails approached Mia, clutching a crumpled drawing of a flower. "I really like your art. I want to be like you when I grow up," she said softly, looking up at her with wide, sparkling eyes. Mia knelt down, a gentle smile forming on her lips. "You can be anything you want to be," she replied, her voice warm and soothing. The girl beamed, and suddenly it felt like the air shifted. The laughter of the crowd dimmed, if only for a moment, allowing a tiny spark of hope to blossom within me. I wanted to be that kind of person. Kind, strong, someone who could lift others up. But how could I be that when I felt so lost? I retreated into myself as the bells rang, signaling the end of lunch. The days that followed were painful. The school became a battlefield. Each passing moment felt like an eternity, as I watched Mia navigate the world, mingling effortlessly with the in-crowd. They hung on her every word, respectful where they had once been cruel, and it was gut-wrenching. I could hardly recognize the girl who existed before. But one evening, alone in my dimly lit room, as I poured my heart onto the page of a blank canvas, I saw Mia through a different lens. It was the darkness that surrounded her, a looming cloud I had only recently begun to understand. The wealth had altered her world, but it hadn't erased the tattoos of her past. And then it hit me. I had an opportunity. My art could bridge the gap between us. I poured my emotions into a piece inspired by her, weaving together shadows and light, vulnerability and strength. Motivated by newfound resolve, I decided to gift it to her, to reach across the divide in a way nothing else could. As I approached her mansion the next day, an overwhelming wave of anxiety hit me. Was it too bold? Would she reject the gesture, dismiss me like the others? As I stood outside, clutching the piece tightly, the grand door opened, revealing an older woman with kind eyes. "Can I help you?" she asked, sensing my hesitation. I swallowed hard. "Is Mia home?" I felt like an intruder, yet there was an urge to push forward, to uncover whatever lay behind the glitz of her new life. "Of course. Please come in." As I stepped across the threshold, the vibrant decor enveloped me, a stark contrast to the dullness of my own home. It was overwhelming. Moments later, Mia emerged, her look one of surprise and something more, recognition coupled with uncertainty. I held out the canvas, my heart pounding. "I made this for you." She glanced at it, then up at me, uncertainty flickering in her beautiful, blind eyes. Then, the unspeakable happened. Just as emotion crackled between us, a loud crash reverberated through the room, the sound of shattering glass followed by muffled voices. Mia's expression shifted instantly, a wave of panic crashing over her features. "No," she whispered, a hint of fear etched into her brow. Before I could process what was unfolding, the sobering truth hit me. The gilded walls of her reality seemed to be crumbling with a vulnerability I never expected. Something darker lay beneath the surface, and as I stood there, canvas in hand, the weight of an unseen storm lingered between us, drawing a line I was frightened to cross. The room fell silent except for the faint crackle of shattering glass from somewhere deeper within the sprawling mansion. My breath hitched in my throat as Mia's eyes flickered away from mine, scanning the space with a frantic energy that had no place in the newfound world I had barely begun to understand. "Mia?" I felt a reckless urge to reach out and comfort her, but the rising tide of confusion held me back. Instead, the heavy silence that filled the air thickened with unspoken fears and untold stories. The shadows cast by the ornate chandeliers seemed to stretch wider, swallowing any semblance of light that once held promise. "Please wait here," she said, her voice trembling slightly as she darted toward the hallway from which the sound had erupted. I stood frozen, half wishing I could follow her, half fearing what I might find. I felt starkly out of place in this gilded realm that seemed to harbor unseen monsters. After what felt like an eternity, she returned, her face ghostly pale. It was just a glass, she explained breathlessly, glancing over her shoulder as if expecting phantoms to emerge from the walls. Just a silly accident. But I could hear the quiver in her tone, her bravado fraying at the edges. Are you okay? The question slipped out before I could stop it. I stepped closer, and she winced, clasping the edge of her own delicate sweater. The gentle hum of her confidence had shattered, leaving silence that begged for honesty. I'm fine, she insisted, but the tremor in her voice told another story, a story unearthed in the shards of glass and whispers hidden beneath her lavish facade. It made my heart ache to think that her struggles were deeper than I'd ever imagined. Your painting, I started to stammer, thrusting the canvas forward almost absently. I made this for you. It's meant to show how strong you are. But my words felt like wisps of smoke in the face of her anxiety. The canvas hung between us like a bridge that may or may not be used. Mia hesitated, her fingers brushing over it tentatively, lingering as though afraid to embrace the message woven within. It's beautiful, she murmured, though the steel had left her tone, replaced by wistfulness. The moment was precious, yet it wedged a paradoxical weight between us, admiration tangled with fear, hope alongside doubt. Suddenly, a loud thump echoed from somewhere off in the distance, a deep, muffled rumble that sent another wave of panic through her. I need to go, she exclaimed, aligning her shell of quiet strength around her like armor. Please, just wait here. I'll be right back. Before I could say anything, she disappeared again, leaving me alone in the opulent hallway. Alone and anxious, I glanced around, noticing the extravagant details, the ornate wallpaper, the glint of polished surfaces, and the faint echoes of laughter that once filled this space, now replaced by an unsettling quiet. Each tick of the clock felt like a reminder that I was standing at the intersection of so many unresolved emotions. Minutes stretched into a small eternity before Mia returned, looking slightly more composed but with shadows still tracing her features. She didn't allow me to ask any questions. Her hand, as if drawn by an invisible tether, guided me toward the living room. I can't stay here for much longer. Can we go outside? I need some air. Are you sure? My concern bubbled up, and I admired her beauty despite the chaos swirling just beneath the surface. She gave a stiff nod, and I could almost see the muscles in her jaw tighten as we crossed the threshold into the serene garden, a harsh contrast to the cacophony inside. The crisp evening air was laced with the sweet scent of blooming flowers, yet an unshakable tension hung heavily around us. A cacophony of emotions rumbled like thunder between us as Mia settled onto the bench, her gaze landing somewhere in the distance. What happened inside? I ventured softly, careful with each word. It felt essential to coax the truth from the shadows that obscured her heart, to dismantle the walls she had erected. She hesitated, her fingers absent-mindedly tracing the barbs of a nearby rosebush. It's nothing, just family drama. The words were an invocation of the past, of chains long forged in what I now understood to be a gilded cage. But it's not nothing to you, I pressed gently. You're strong, Mia. I saw it today when you stood up to Anna. A flicker of something crossed her expression, a mix of gratitude and heaviness that made the air between us crackle with unvoiced questions. At that moment, I realized our worlds were more intertwined than I ever imagined. Hers was not merely one of wealth and privilege, but of expectations, pressures, and the longing for acceptance. You don't have to pretend with me, I whispered, my heart racing as vulnerability teetered across an invisible line. Just as our eyes locked, a shadow flickered past a figure emerging from the solarium behind us. Mia tensed, her face suddenly constricting as if bracing for impact. I felt the shift in the atmosphere, a palpable sense of danger weaving through the stillness. Mia! A deep voice boomed, the tone harsh and accusatory. Where are you? You can't be out here alone. As I turned to face the figure, a chill settled in the depths of my spine. It was a man, tall and commanding, a shining dark suit hugging his frame. The smirk on his face twisted into something unrecognizable as his eyes narrowed toward me. And who is this? Mia's gaze whipped back and forth between us, desperation creeping into her expression. Please don't, but it was too late. The weight of unspoken revelations began to unravel like a thread being pulled from a tightly knit fabric, threatening to expose all that lay beneath. The air was electric with tension, and at that moment, it felt like everything was about to shatter once more, just like the glass inside cabin fever crackling to the surface, chaos threatening to eclipse whatever fragile bond might have unfurled between us. And just like that, with one man's mere presence, my heart sank into the ferocity of uncertainty. The man's presence loomed larger than life, an oppressive weight that made the garden feel smaller, somehow confining. Mia's mouth opened as if to speak, yet no words emerged. She looked as if she were caught in the eye of an emotional storm, her heart racing against the unrelenting tide of familial expectations that had closed around her once more. I asked you a question, Mia, he continued, his voice low and cutting, sharp as the thorns that encircled the flowers. What are you doing out here with him? His disdain dripped from each syllable, the way he sneered at my presence sending a bolt of rage through my veins. I stepped forward instinctively, wanting to shield her from this sudden avalanche of judgment. I'm just here to support her, I said, struggling to keep my own voice steady, to mask the tremors of uncertainty that coursed through me. Mia finally found her voice, quaking as she stepped closer to the man, a desperate plea hidden behind her calm facade. Please, Jared. It's not what you think. I need to breathe. You're suffocating me. Each word seemed to ripple out, pushing against a barrier of unyielding control that felt all too familiar. Jared's eyes widened, his shock masked by an upturned lip that held onto a condescending disbelief. Suffocating? You're not a child anymore, Mia. It's time you face your responsibilities. That includes who you associate with. Do you really think this painter is an appropriate choice? For a fleeting moment, a flicker of strength ignited in Mia's gaze, but it quickly flickered out, extinguished by the overwhelming expectations he clawed at her. I sensed the tidal wave of emotions crashing around her: fear, defiance, and the desperate need for acceptance, a longing that tugged at her even as she fought against it. His words hung like an uninvited guest, insidious and unwelcome, burrowing into her psyche. You could be so much more, he pressed, his tone shifting slightly, an insidious charm mixing with the edge of threat. You know that, right? But she didn't respond. Instead, the silence stretched, heavy with burdens that weighed her down. It took everything I had not to intervene further, to protect her from whatever lurking darkness this man drew upon in his pursuit of control over her. Mia, I breathed, desperate to reach her through the thick fog of tension. You don't have to listen to him. Not now, not ever. The instinct to reach for her, to pull her away from this suffocating grip overwhelmed me, yet I held myself back, knowing she needed her own agency. In that moment, a flicker of rebellion sparked in her eyes. You don't understand my life, Jared. You've never taken the time. Her voice faltered as doubt crept in once more. You think I chose any of this? And what about the choices you've made today? He countered, eyes narrowing like a hawk seeing its prey. Hiding in the garden with an outsider? You think this is just a game? Mia! I pleaded softly, trying to penetrate the confines of fear wrapping around her fragile resolve. But as if caught in a well-laid snare, she paused, glancing back and forth between her family tether and the fleeting spirit she held so tightly at bay. The rich floral scent turned sharp and acrid, stinging my senses as I watched her falter. She was a tapestry of strength and vulnerability, and I longed to pull her from the grasp of this tempest. Before I could react, Mia's shoulders sagged, as if the weight of expectation had crushed the remaining flickers of defiance. She took a step back, deflating like a balloon losing air, casting her gaze down as a vulnerable admission surged forth. Maybe you're right. The words barely left her lips, quiet, defeated. Something inside me shattered with her acceptance of his words, the veil of clarity I fought to maintain blowing away like dandelion fluff in the wind. I wanted to scream, to tell her she was more than what he believed, that she was filled with fire and promise. But as she stood there, the faintest glimmer of hope extinguished in her eyes, I could only watch. Jared smirked, a mix of triumph and cruelty. Good to see you're finally starting to understand. Then, with a dismissive wave, he turned, striding away but not without leaving a palpable sense of dread in the air. I felt his victory resonate within me, a disturbing pulse that quickened every doubt I ever had of our tenuous connection. But as he vanished into the mansion, Mia turned to me, her expression shifting, no longer just the canvas of defeat. Something stirred within her, a storm long brewing beneath the surface. The embers of anger fluttered in her eyes, flickering against the confusion that had woven itself through her veins. "I can't let him win," she murmured, her voice stronger now, laced with a fierce determination that shone like a lighthouse guiding a ship through raging seas. And just as I began to believe there was a resurgence of hope within her, the unmistakable sound of the back door creaking open echoed through the air. My heart dropped as I turned, seeing not only Mia's family emerging from the house but figures I recognized, all too well familiar faces from my past that threatened to unravel the fabric of this fragile moment, the bitter seeds of an old conflict planted deep within my heart. "Who's this?" one of them called out, their voice a snake, filled with venom. "Another charity case? Didn't he know you were slumming it, Mia?" A twist of fear intermingled with the knot of my stomach, and I felt the walls begin to close in once more. As stairs latched onto us, Mia's resolve wavered, and I knew then that everything I had hoped for hung by the thinnest thread. Caught between the weight of the past and the hope of an uncertain future, I held my breath, bracing for the storm that was about to break. How much further would she have to go before she broke free from her gilded cage? Would I have the strength to stand by her, even as shadows from both our pasts crept ever closer, ready to consume the light we had only just begun to find? The back door swung open wider, and with it came the sound of laughter, the kind that cuts deep, jagged edges that hurt with every echo. I could see Mia stiffening beside me, her previous fire faltering as the figures emerged like phantoms from the very depths of our shared history. They wore confidence like a second skin, and I recognized that look of superiority painted on their faces, an emotion so familiar to me, yet foreign on the canvas of Mia's life. "Just because you're out here in the grass, pretending to find yourself, doesn't mean reality is going to change," said Claire, the ringleader of the pack and once my worst enemy. Her laughter sliced through the air, and I felt as if it came with barbed wire wrapped around each note. Mia clenched her fists at her sides, an instinctive response to their taunts, yet I could hear the rattle of doubt creeping back into her psyche, trying to drown out the determination that had begun to rise like the tide. "Leave me alone," she replied, pitching her voice against the wind, yet there was an undercurrent of hesitation, a tinge of surrender that sent another wave of despair crashing over me. "Why?" "We just want to see the view from your little garden oasis." With an exaggerated glance around, Claire made it clear she was mocking the very act of Mia finding solace in this space. "Or are you just hiding out here with, what's his name again? A wannabe artist playing the role of savior?" As she coiled her venomous words, I glimpsed the flicker of rebellion reigniting within Mia's cerulean depths. But before she could respond, Claire's entourage moved in closer, casting shadows in the sunlit clearing that felt heavier than lead. They were minions, followers who fed off her insecurities, a relentless tide pulling her back into a whirlpool of self-doubt. "What's wrong, Mia? You embarrassed because we caught you daydreaming instead of looking for a real job? Your new boyfriend wouldn't last a day in a boardroom." Their laughter wove through the air like poison ivy, suffocating the opportunity for Mia to reclaim the narrative, the life they had stolen from her. Suddenly, without realizing the shift in the atmosphere, the room dampened with a heavy sadness. For a brief moment, I could see into Mia's soul, her struggles, the years lost under suffocating expectations, a shell of potential cracked and tarnished by judgment. Each laugh echoed memories of her vulnerability, of the girl who once sought refuge in quiet corners, closeted dreams buried deep beneath the tumult of their mockery. My heart raced, a primal instinct to rise up, to shield her from their onslaught warming my blood. At that moment, I spotted a flower, the once proud bloom testifying to resilience in a garden that had become an oppressive landscape of pain. My body took a step forward, instinctively shielding Mia from the piercing barbs, and I shot a glance back at her, urging her silently to hold on to her strength. "Why don't you show us what that oil brush can do?" Claire sneered, casually dismissing my protective stance as just another hurdle to leap over. You could draw us something pretty if only you could manage to see past your rose-colored fantasies. And then, something unexpected happened. As if commanded by a power that surged through the very foundation of her being, Mia stepped forward, breaking through the confines of her hesitation. Her voice, once barely a whisper in the chaos, rang out with clarity, steady and determined. You have no idea who I am anymore. You know nothing of my journey. The world fell momentarily silent. Her words hung there, infused with conviction, and I felt the air around us thicken with disbelief. There was a shift, and it felt real, tangible, a hint of the girl she'd hidden all this time and the fierce woman she was preparing to be. Then, as the disbelief crystallized into a mix of disdain and shock among her tormentors, Claire's expression shifted from arrogance to something darker. For a fleeting instant, I saw the simmering jealousy boiling just beneath the surface. Oh really? Then why don't you enlighten us, Mia? Tell us who you are. But before she could respond, before reality could backtrack into the suffocating shadows of fear and doubt, a strange flutter of recognition washed over me. Tears blurred my vision as I glimpsed the raw honesty emerging from Mia's depths, a truth she'd been too scared to unleash. Something inside me ignited at that moment, a desperate hope that this would be the turning point for both of us, and then came the bombshell, as if the universe conspired to unleash hidden destinies. You think I'm just some charity case? Mia's voice trembled with restrained emotion, her eyes now blazing with insights I had yet to see. You think I'm just an extension of my family? You have no idea how far I've come, do you? I'm not the poor blind girl you used to bully. I am beyond that now. Gasps enveloped the space, as if someone had swung a heavy door wide open, revealing the truths they dared not believe. And then, as she stood at the precipice of her unveiling, the weight of the universe shifted as she added, Do you know that I'm a billionaire? I own this garden and everything surrounding it. The collective silence froze time, and before shock could settle in, Claire's poise crumbled with the ferocity of an avalanche, anger mingling with the unmistakable threat of fear. Around us, the sunlight poured over the moment, illuminating the strength that had always dwelled within Mia. But before I could react, to truly grasp the full scope of her revelation or what it would mean for us both, a deeper darkness erupted, something not tied to Claire or her crew but resonating from within the mansion itself. Shadows flickered as doors reverberated from unseen chaos, a brand new threat unfurling beyond the garden, stitching our fates together in ways we could not yet foresee. The garden, once a sanctuary, stood now as a battleground of emotions and revelations, and I braced myself for the full weight of everything we were about to face. The game was just beginning, and I feared the tides would only swell further from this point forward. Mia stood at the center of the storm, the revelation hanging in the air like an unfinished sentence, echoing the fierce vulnerability she had just unleashed. Claire's response was a mix of disbelief and rage, her brow furrowed, painted with betrayal. For a brief breath, I felt buoyed by hope. Mia had taken a step, defying their cruel grasp, but the shift was startling, and the sound of the mansion's chaos pressed against us like a weight. As Mia held her ground, I leaned closer, whispers of doubt still wrapping around my heart. What if this was just a temporary blaze, a flicker in her nuanced struggle? But then she turned to me, eyes shimmering with resolve, a lock of resilience woven into her fear. I reached for her hand, and she clasped it tightly, the warmth of her grasp igniting a flicker of courage within me. Let them scoff, I murmured, though my own voice trembled. You're beyond their reach now. Do you really think so? She asked, her tone hovering between hope and disbelief. Absolutely, I assured her, the conviction growing as I faced the group. You aren't who you were back then, and you never will be again. But Claire's sneer was a dark blot against the sun. You think because you threw around some words about money that it makes you powerful? It doesn't change the fact that you're still lost, still clinging to your foolish dreams while the world runs right past you. Somewhere beneath the despair, I felt a sliver of hope. Perhaps ignorance had become our shield, an illusory buffer. Malta offered one that crumbled beneath truth. The laughter that had cut Mia so deeply began to feel distant, even small, against the enormity of her revelation. And then it came, the dark tides washing in from beyond the garden. From somewhere inside the mansion came the sound of crashing glass, followed by a voice, clearer than all others, resonating like an alarm. "Get out! You have to leave now!" We all turned, shocked, as a figure burst from the shadowy recess, disheveled and frantic. It was Henry, the mansion's caretaker, his eyes wild and unsteady. He moved toward us, shaking, his hands outstretched, palm forward, as though attempting to keep at bay the unseen horror spilling from within the walls. The foundation's crumbling. I saw cracks moving just before what's happening out here. His breath was ragged, terror spilling out in trembling waves. "You have to go. Now!" Claire scoffed, still frozen in her self-centered disdain. "What are you on about? This is the richest girl in town you're addressing. Your money won't save you!" Henry shouted back, his voice rising above the heated confrontation. "The mansion is unstable. We have to evacuate." In those moments, time wove itself tighter around us, every heartbeat echoing with the weight of decisions left hanging. The teasing laughter that had initially surrounded us faded into stark reality. I felt a cold creep of dread curling around my spine. This wasn't just about Mia's past or Claire's obnoxious mockery anymore. We were standing on the precipice of danger, thrust into a ferocious storm, one that demanded we act swiftly or risk losing everything. Mia looked at me, her expression shifting from confusion to clarity. "Do you trust me?" she asked softly, without a hesitation, always. Her gaze flickered towards the mansion behind us, where the shivering shadows now seemed to stir with a life of their own. "Then we need to help him. We can't just stand here." I nodded, racing forward, pulling Mia with me as we maneuvered through the thickening tension of the moment. Claire's group hesitated, their bravado faltering as panic set into their expressions. Doubt blossomed in the faces of the once defiant. "Get everyone out!" I yelled back to Henry, my voice laced with dread. "We'll check the other rooms." The three of us hurried toward the mansion's doors, anticipation weighing heavy, each step reverberating against the cluttered history of the past. As we opened the door, a cloud of dust swirled, the energies shifting inside like an eerie countdown telling us we were running out of time. As we moved deeper into the home, the air thickened with something foreboding, a reminder that beneath the luxury, hidden within its walls, were the sore scars of history and suffering. A painting fell from the wall, and in that moment, shattered glass exploded around us, punctuating the chaos gathering strength. A binding reminder of how fragile every illusion of safety could be. "Mia! Look!" My shout rang out as I spotted a flicker at the far end of the hallway. A hidden door, barely visible but ajar, pulsed with intrigue and invitation to unearth secrets that twisted through her family's legacy. But just as curiosity gripped me, a loud crack resounded, splintering the air like thunder. The ground roared beneath us, thrumming with urgency. A renewed terror washed over me. What if that door opened up a darker truth we weren't prepared to face? "Mia, we can't stay here," I pleaded, panic rising in my chest like bile. "We're in danger. We need to escape." But her eyes locked onto the door with an intensity one hadn't seen before, reflective of her inner battle. "No, we have to find out what's behind it," she insisted fiercely. And just as she took a step forward, the sound of a final, shattering crash echoed, rattling the heart of the mansion. I watched as the lights flickered ominously, shadows swirling greedily. It felt as if we stood at midnight, on the threshold of fate itself. "I won't let you go alone." I reached for her, our hands intertwining, both of us pulled between the urgency to flee and the yearning to uncover the truth. "What comes next will reveal everything," she breathed, eyes fierce like embers, firm and resolute. And as we stood there, gripped by the moments and the impending fallout, I realized that the journey was far from over. A tempest awaited us, carrying deep revelations destined to intertwine our lives in ways we'd never envisioned. With one last breath, we pressed onward toward the door, no turning back now. Only the unknown awaited us, a cryptic revelation charged with potential, tantalizing and terrifying all at once. We stepped through the door, heartbeats harmonizing with the whisper of dust motes dancing in the narrow shaft of light. The scent was earthy, laced with an air of long-buried stories, things that had been held hostage by time and darkness. Faint whispers floated in my mind, recollections of the ridicule Mia had faced, the fragile schoolgirl who had become a pariah, her past sculpted by malicious gossip. Now here we were, staring into the murky shadows of her history, each heartbeat heavy with the weight of what could lie ahead. "Mia, are you sure about this?" I questioned, the anxiety threading through my veins like wildfire. Her grip on my hand tightened, defiance flickering in her eyes as though she were silently daring me to doubt her resolve. "I need to know who I really am," she answered, a tremor in her voice just beneath the armor of courage. I understood that feeling all too well, the need to strip away the layers of preconceived identities and unearth one's truth, no matter how painful. Together, we stepped deeper into the hidden room, which opened into a small, dimly lit space lined with dusty shelves crammed with books and artifacts, each a portal to a world Mia had been shielded from. Old family photographs adorned the walls, and the faces stared back at us, ageless in their mute judgment. I caught glimpses of younger Mia in those frames, each smile eerily familiar but encompassed by the hollow echoes I'd witnessed in her present. "There must be something here," Mia murmured, releasing my hand to move closer to the nearest shelf. Her fingers brushed along the spines of the books, searching for a connection, her heart spilling from her chest in fragments of vulnerability. From the corner of my eye, I spotted a large leather-bound journal, its edges worn and its cover inscribed with the initials ML. Without thinking, I took it from the shelf, a rush of excitement coursing through me. "Look, Mia! This could be important." Her eyes brightened with intrigue, and together we opened the journal, the pages fluttering open, revealing layers of meticulous writing that chronicled her parents' lives, their struggles and triumphs, entwined in a web of expectations that mirrored the very chains she had fought to shatter. But beneath that polished narrative lay something more tumultuous. The further we read, the more the emotions coursed through the ink: sorrow, betrayal, and a tale of familial estrangement that clawed at Mia's heart. "This can't be all. They can have only been this," she faltered, her voice stuttering, a crack forming in her armor. "There's got to be more. My family couldn't have just thrown me away simply for being different." Pain reflecting in her eyes cut through my defenses, and I moved beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders to offer a semblance of solace. She was unraveling, bravely treading through a labyrinth of anguish, and I felt my heart wait with a blend of empathy and indignation at the injustice of it all. "Look here," I pointed to an entry that mentioned an estate and offshoot property that had been kept secret in the shadows of their legacy. "They were hiding something, Mia. This place, there's more to your story than anyone dared to tell you." Mia's gaze sharpened, determination flaring up in place of despair. "We need to find this estate," she insisted, her voice regaining strength. "If they took everything from me, I have to reclaim it." But just as that flicker of hope surged, the room began to shudder. The shadows grew darker, the very air pressing down as if protesting our intrusion. The journal slipped from her fingers, pages fluttering as another crash echoed, sending us scrambling back toward the exit. "Come on!" I pulled on her hand, adrenaline pumping through us like electricity as we turned to flee. Each strained breath was a reminder of how our reality was shifting, teetering on the brink of collapse. While the shadows whispered malicious secrets, we burst back into the main corridor, our hearts racing not just from fear but from a newfound urgency to uncover the hidden ties binding Mia's fate. "I wouldn't let them keep this from me," she declared breathlessly, glancing back at the darkness closing in. "It's part of who I am." As we reached the entrance, chaos erupted around us. The startled faces of Claire and her friends collided with our path, panic etching into the lines of their faces. But before I could process the mounting tension, a sudden explosion rattled the air behind us, sending debris crashing down. With no choice, we charged past them, out into the budding night. The grounds outside were a whirlwind of confusion, the storm darkening as if reflecting the turmoil within. "Mia, we can't go back in!" I shouted, desperate to anchor her resolve before the mansion swallowed us whole. But in her eyes, I saw an unwavering determination. "I have to, for the truth, for myself," she pled, and just as I opened my mouth to pull her from the edge of the fragile precipice, a piercing scream threaded through the air, echoing from the depths of the mansion. The sound was gut-wrenching, filled with the raw ache of someone trapped, someone who desperately needed rescuing. Mia, I started, guilt hollowing me as I sensed her resolve falter, but the primal instinct for protection surged in me. We can't lose anyone else in this. I don't want to lose you. A glimmer of hesitation swept across her face. But before she could answer, the ground beneath us trembled once more, and the other occupants of the property surged past us, their fear unfurling like banners of chaos. With our lives' choices piling heavy as the scattered detritus around us, I realized that the call to uncover Mia's legacy could inadvertently plunge us into deeper waters of danger than either of us could have predicted. Blood would spill, truths would rupture, and just beyond the threshold of the mansion, a reckoning awaited us, something lurking in the shadows, something we could not escape. As I glanced at Mia, her expression caught between fear and fierce courage, my heart raced toward an undefined horizon. Everything hinged upon the decision we would make in the next breath. And unbeknownst to us, the true storm was only just beginning to gather. The night air was thick with an unyielding tension, and as Mia and I stood at the precipice of the mansion's entrance, we felt the ghosts of our fears clawing at our resolve. The screams still reverberated in my bones, melding with the cacophony of chaos behind us. I may have been trying to protect Mia, but in that moment, her need for truth was palpable, an electric current that couldn't be ignored. Mia, we can't just run in there blind, I said, trying to reason with the tempest brewing in her eyes. We have no idea what is really happening inside. But I do know, she countered, her voice steady and low, a stark contrast to the panicked atmosphere around us. It's my family. Whatever that scream is, it's connected to me. I need to go. Before I could respond, she stepped toward the threshold, her silhouette framed by the doorway like a beacon of defiance. The mansion loomed behind her, its once innocuous nature transformed into a dwelling of nightmares, shadows twisting with anticipation. In that fleeting moment, I saw the frightened girl I had known, morphing into someone who would not cower in the face of her past any longer. Yet the tremor in her fingers betrayed a core of uncertainty, a flicker of fear that ignited within me. Leaving her to charge into potential danger alone was riveted with guilt, but holding her back felt selfish, as if I would be denying her a chance of reclaiming her identity, her power. I'll follow you, I declared, the words escaping my lips with a mixture of resolve and trepidation. But let us promise to look out for each other. We'll find out what is happening together. A breath hitched in her throat, and for a brief moment, her defenses softened. Thank you, she whispered, gratitude flaring in her gaze. With a shared moment of understanding solidifying our bond, we stepped back into the shrouded depths of the mansion, each step weighted with purpose and uncertainty. As we penetrated the interior, the winds outside howled like mournful spirits, filling the grand hall with a haunting echo that sounded almost alive. The walls seemed to quiver as we ventured deeper, the dim light from scattered sconces casting an eerie glow on the crumbling wallpaper, peeling away the layers of history emboldened by time. Where do we go? My heart pounded, the remnants of our earlier adrenaline fueling my determination. I think it came from this way, Mia stated, gesturing toward a narrow passage that felt laden with secrets, thick with dust that swirled like shadows in anticipation of our entry. The air grew colder as we moved forward, the silence amplifying the faint echoes of distant cries and sorrowful whispers. Each corner we rounded felt like an invasion, and I couldn't help but flinch when creaking floorboards protested beneath our footsteps. With every inch we traversed, I sensed Mia's heartbeat quicken, and her anxious energy morphed into a fierce resolve that urged us onward. Each door we passed felt like a lifeline. Should we open them? Would they grant us answers or entrap us in the narratives that had held her captive for too long? Mia, wait, I hesitated, glancing toward a room that radiated an oddly welcoming glow. It diminished in brightness as we approached, like a flickering flame desperate to stay alive. Please, she implored softly, her breath hanging in the chill of our surroundings. Just one more room, I promise. Opening the door, we found ourselves in a small library, the remaining heirlooms of her family littered throughout. Dusty keepsakes, heirloom dolls, and portraits lined the walls like sentinels of a hidden past. But what caught my attention was an ornate table draped with photographs scattered haphazardly face down, as if the truths contained within were too painful to face. Mia, look at this, I urged, kneeling to flip over a photo, sending a shiver of recognition through me. The image depicted Mia as a child, standing beside a woman who bore a striking resemblance to her. I looked closer. The woman was smiling, yet her eyes glistened with the same sorrow I had seen deep within Mia's own gaze. What? Mia whispered in disbelief, reaching forward to grasp the photograph with trembling fingers. The sound of footsteps echoed from the hallway, abruptly drawing our attention. The air thickened with a sense of foreboding, and when the door creaked open wider, our breathing halted. A figure loomed in the doorway, illuminated by the pale glow of the hall, its presence like a shadow emerging from the depths. Mia? The voice was familiar yet haunting, layered with an air of superiority that made my skin prick. Didn't I warn you to stay away? My gut tightened as recognition struck. It was Claire. Her expression was devoid of the earlier panic, replaced with a gleaming confidence that was more unnerving than comforting. What are you doing here? I demanded, standing defensively in front of Mia, protector instinct igniting. Mia, do you really think you belong here? Claire smirked, her voice dripping with disdain as she stepped further into the room, encroaching our safe haven. This isn't a fairy tale. You're not a princess who can just wander back into the fold expecting a welcome. Mia deserves to know the truth of her family, Claire, I snapped, my chest tightening with indignation. The lies have to end. Another figure joined Claire, and my heart dropped at the sight. It was one of her friends, pistols drawn, their eyes glinting with something far more sinister than antic fear. Mia, we need to go now. I yanked her arm, but she remained rooted in place, frozen in disbelief at the apprehension swirling within the confines of the mansion. Just when I thought matters couldn't spiral further, the revelation of Claire's true intentions surged forth like a surge of unexpected illumination, mingling with a foreboding anticipation that tangled my insides. Don't you see? Claire continued, a smirk creeping across her lips as triumph seeped into her voice. You don't just come back from being forgotten. This place doesn't want you, and neither do I. But I'm coming for everything, and you'll wish you never set foot here. Mia's eyes flickered with a dawning realization, but before I could react, the world imploded with the force of Claire's words, leaving us suspended in a chasm of uncertainty where hope clashed fiercely against despair. With the shadows closing in around us, the weight of Mia's past solidified, threatening to demand her once more, while the future tangled behind a veil of menace and dread. I looked at Mia, feeling the unsteady foundations of our intertwined destinies quake beneath our feet, and just as Claire lunged toward us, the ground roared with the sound of disarray, the threshold we had crossed fracturing beneath the weight of our choices. The confrontation had begun, and our lives surged toward an unimaginable precipice, one that would either unveil the hidden truths we sought or consume us in its fury. The darkness of the hallway surged around us as Claire lunged, and instinct kicked and faceless fears gave way to adrenaline-fueled movements. I pulled Mia back just as Claire's hand grasped the air where she had stood moments before. My heart raced, drowning out the distant cries echoing through the mansion's unsettling corridors. Mia, we need to find another way out. I urged, my voice tinged with the urgency that surged through every beat of my racing heart. But Mia's gaze remained fixed on Claire, her expression a mirror of confusion and anger. So this is how it is? She spat, her voice steady despite the chaos. You've always thought you could decide for me. But I'm not your pawn anymore, Claire. The defiance that had once flickered to life within her now blazed. I held my breath, torn between admiration and concern, as Claire sneered back at Mia, her triumphant posture unflinching. Do you really think you can just come back and command respect? Claire's voice dripped with venom that seeped into the shadows, amplifying the growing tension. No one wants you here. You are nothing but a ghost of the past, a burden we've grown used to living without. Each of Claire's words stung like daggers, carving deeper wounds with every syllable. I could see Mia's resolve faltering, but her grip on the photograph remained tight, as if it contained the strength she was searching for amidst the chaos of her identity. I stepped forward, positioning myself between them. You're wrong, Claire. She deserves more than your lies and manipulations. Do you really think you can keep her from her truth? Claire's laugh was sharp, cutting through the thick air. You believe you're her savior? Look at you both hiding in the dark, making desperate moves. Letting her wade through misery instead of facing hard realities. She controls nothing. For a moment, the idea seeped in, gnawing at the edges of me. What if Claire was right? What if our rebellious quest had been nothing more than a Jewish fantasy, a misguided rebellion against an irreparable reality filled with misfortunes? Maybe I was leading Mia astray. As doubts wrapped around my mind like ivy, Mia stared at me, her eyes brimming with conflict. What if we are just misplaced? She whispered, almost to herself. No! The word burst out of my mouth like a lifeline. Mia, do you want to be a prisoner of your past? Their past? Your mother didn't want that for you. Look at the photo. I gestured toward the image depicting her youthful spirit next to her mother's smiling face. Even she saw the beauty in you, the potential. Mia's breathing quickened, a tangible realization sparking behind her eyes. You're right, she stated, her heart igniting with newfound determination. I am not here to beg for acceptance. I'm here to claim my truth. The tides began to shift, a wave of resilience rising within the haunted mansion's walls. Claire's expression shifted, momentarily caught off guard by Mia's resurgence of strength, but fury quickly replaced it, warping her features with rage. You think you can just snatch back a life that was never yours? You're delusional. Before I could respond, heavy footsteps reverberated from down the hall, drawing attention away from our heated exchange. A second figure appeared, a looming silhouette that sent chills racing down my spine. A man, tall and imposing, stepped into the dim light, his intentional strides exuding authority. Mia? His voice reverberated, a deep timbre that echoed through the hall, drowning out the last remnants of our confrontation. What are you doing here? Mia's recognition was instant, her eyes widening as she took a hesitant step forward. Dad? The vulnerability in her voice cut through the air, a fragile thread pulling at the tattered edges of her identity. The man's gaze darted between Mia and Claire, his brow furrowing in confusion. Claire, what have you done? He demanded, his voice filled with a blend of disbelief and anger. Mia doesn't belong here, Claire shouted, her face twisting into a mask of fury, muscles taut like a coiled spring. She's a ghost, the past. Left behind. You can't just welcome her back into this twisted family. But the father's attention focused solely on Mia, his eyes revealing a tender streak. You're not in danger, are you? His voice softened as he reached out, and in that brief moment, it felt like a fragment of light cutting through the swirling shadows of despair. Mia's breath hitched, a burst of emotions battling within her as hope glimmered in the corner of her heart. I didn't want to be forgotten. She stepped away from me, moving toward him as if gravitating towards a strength she had spent her life seeking. I'm here because I want to understand everything. The room seemed to constrict as Claire stepped back, the color draining from her face, her control slipping like sand through fingers. You think it's that easy? To waltz back into our lives and play the victim? You have no idea what sacrifices were made. The truth lingered in the air, pulsing with intrigue and betrayal. The ugly past hung over us like a heavy blanket, threatening to smother sparks of hope. In that instant, as Mia's eyes locked onto her father's pleading stare, I felt a crack forming in the fabric of the tense standoff, like the first tremor of a brewing storm, a potential storm of revelations that might topple everything we thought we understood. I swallowed hard, acutely aware that the next set of words would dictate our fate. But before anyone could speak again, a thunderous crash echoed from above, reverberating through the mansion as dust rained down around us, a tangible manifestation of the turmoil we had stirred. Mia! We have to move! I shouted, and without waiting for a response, I reached for her hand, fingers intertwined as if to lock in our bond against the chaos. Claire's indignant scream mingled with the cacophony from above, drowning us in the uncertain path heading into the unknown. In that instant, as we dashed through the door, racing ahead into the widening chaos of a truth barreling to the surface, the shadows shifted, revealing hidden elements neither of us had anticipated. And just as we reached the threshold of freedom, Mia froze, her breath caught in her throat. Wait! Her voice trembled with a mix of dread and realization, and I turned back to see her face pale, examined by a dawning horror. The photograph. What if there's more to my mother's story? What if she was taken because of the words hung in the air, unspoken yet thunderous, filling the spaces between us with deep-seated fear and dread? The convergence of our fates charged the moment, fueled by a revelation that promised to unravel everything yet held the power to bind us closer than ever before. Secrets loomed like wildfires, and as we stepped into the corridor, the unknown beckoned with a fury we could never have imagined. The air crackled with unspoken words as Mia and I stood on the precipice of truth, teetering over the edge of revelations long buried beneath layers of fear and betrayal. I could see the flickers of doubt clouding her eyes, shadows of the past reaching out for her, threatening to pull her back into the darkness. But there was something else there, too, a glimmer of defiance that sparked in her heart. Mia, I whispered, grasping her hand tighter, willing her to hold on to the flickers of hope that had emerged from the ashes of despair. Whatever happens, we face this together. No more running. She nodded, her chin tilting up just slightly, a subtle gesture that indicated she would not be swayed. As we rushed deeper into the chaotic labyrinth of the mansion, determination fueled our steps. Behind us, I could hear Clara's enraged screams echo through the halls, and with each moment, I felt the thrumming urgency of the mansion's instability intensifying. We pushed onward, heading toward the source of that haunting scream, a cry that resonated with the pain woven through Mia's history. Every step felt like a step into an unknown abyss, and the deeper we ventured, the more the shadows seemed to whisper secrets meant to remain buried. Do you really think she has gone, Mia? I asked tentatively, pushing us forward even as my heart raced with trepidation. Your mother, does that scream belong to her? The reflection of anguish twisted through Mia's expression and ignited a profound sadness within me. I don't know, she breathed, her voice shaking. But if she is really here, I have to find her. I need to know why I was pushed away. As we rounded a corner, the hallway opened up into a grand room, adorned with ornate tapestries and remnants of opulence that now felt tainted by the distrust woven into their very fabric. In the center, a figure loomed, silhouetted against the backdrop of the shattered opulence, an apparition that struck chords of familiarity and unease in equal measure. Mia, the figure called, and the voice carried an undeniable echo of the past. My breath hitched in my throat as I recognized the familiar softness of warmth I thought I'd never experience again. You shouldn't have come back here. Mama! Mia's voice cracked, blossoming into a swell of emotion as she stepped forward instinctively, her eyes wide with disbelief. Is it really you? There, in the heart of that stately, crumbling room stood a woman whose aura seemed to defy not only time but also reason, the remnants of sadness heavily etched on her face, lost within a lifetime of sorrow and regret. It was real, and in that moment, the shimmering illusion of safety ruptured, a past streamed into the present. Mia, her mother's voice faltered, and in that heartbeat, all the unresolved questions exploded within Mia's heart. Years of longing crystallized into a singular truth. A fragile thread that had bound them now lay exposed, threaded with both anguish and love. But just as the emotional air thickened, looming threats erupted anew. Claire charged into the room, her features twisted with rage and frustration that surged below the surface like a boiling river of jealousy. You think you can come back and break apart our family? You think your mother deserves a welcome? Her voice sliced through the room like a blade aimed at precision, bent on destruction. Mia deserves answers, a chance to reclaim her life, I shot back, my instinct for protection igniting. You don't own her or her mother's past. With resolve, I stepped between them, determined to create a shield of courage around Mia. Claire scoffed incredulously, anger and jealousy intertwining in a dance woven through the very threads of their history. You think she needs your protection? You're naive if you believe that. The dripping disdain punctuated the air, igniting the bitterness of a rivalry forged through years of rivalry. But as her words hung heavy between us, the shadows began to shift. The walls creaked, an echo all too familiar. The mansion itself began to tremble. A crack spidered overhead, revealing glimpses of the mounting chaos beyond, the foundations collapsing around us. Mia, we have to go, I urged, sensing time slipping like sand through our fingers. But as I turned to guide her, I caught the overwhelmed look on her face, the way she hesitated at the crossroads of her past and future. We can't let them define us. Mama! Please, her voice cracked, longing laced through every syllable as she reached out to her mother, the weight of grief mingling with anger. Tell me why you left. In that moment, the world closed in. The emotional chasm between them reverberated with the pulse of their shared history. I watched helplessly as Mia's mother reached for her, hesitation etched all over her features. Mia, I thought I was protecting you, but I see now what the price has been. Her voice trembled, wearing the same echoes of regret and sorrow I had seen flicker in Mia's eyes so many times. I thought I could keep you safe from this world, but in truth, I held your heart captive when all you needed was to be free. The room jolted with debris tumbling from the ceiling, and I grabbed Mia's arm, pulling her toward the exit. We need to go. Now. The urgency surged through me, but I felt as if I were unraveling the tenuous threads binding them together. I have to know, Mama! Her voice rose in defiance. You can't take this away from me any longer. I could sense this moment was pivotal. Truths long buried were rising through the tempest of grief encircling both mother and daughter. Clara's fury erupted again, a dangerous spark igniting within her. She doesn't belong here. You are nothing without our family. Your mother made her choices, and now you'll pay the price. Her venom swung invisibly, entwining reality in a tight grip, trying to crush the moment we had all longed for. With determination glowing in her heart, Mia retorted, No. I refuse to pay for someone else's mistakes. I was born from your shadows, but I will not be chained by them anymore. In that moment, her words echoed through the crumbling structure, radiating through the thick air suffused with fear and uncertainty. Mia! Her mother cried, panic flickering in her eyes, but the resolve had coiled tightly around them both. The collapse around us quickened its pace, the fabric of their world beginning to unravel. You deserve more than this. I was wrong, can you forgive me? The pleading tone hung heavy around us, and I could feel the flicker of hope cutting through the darkness. But just as Mia opened her mouth, ready to respond to the truth she had long sought, the ceiling overhead cracked, echoes of chaos mingling with the blast of baked emotion seeping from all that was left unresolved. Mia! I shouted, wrapping my arm around her waist, preparing to pull her away and shield her from the impending danger. We need to leave. Now. Mama! She cried, torn between seeking closure and the urgent desire to escape. I need you to understand, forgive yourself for what you did. It shouldn't have been this way. Tears streamed down her cheeks, embodying the storm of longing that hadn't fully realized how desperate the connection was, a journey of forgiveness threading through the fabric of their lives. Their eyes met, locked in a desperate finality, as the horror of the world trembled around us. And in that moment, a flicker of understanding passed, one that wrapped hope and love around their connection, somber yet alive. Her mother's voice cracked, pouring emotion through the fissures of what it meant to reconcile a love unleashed from silence and regret. The weight of legacy hung in the air, a tether binding lives, intersecting through desperate choices leading to pain. But the moment was fleeting, and just as the emotions surged, a deep rumble surged from above. We have to move, now! I pulled Mia with urgency, ready to break free from the chains of a past filled with pain that had long outlived its purpose. As we surged back through the doorway, the air grew thick with urgency, sweetened by the promise of forgiveness yet shouting the desperate need to escape. But I felt the pull of Mia's resolve, anchoring us down, steering our hearts toward redemption even amidst the impending collapse. Mama, I don't need a perfect past, just the chance for a future, Mia called out before letting the door swing shut behind us, leaving the old ghosts behind, tethered only by memories that would begin to fade as futures unfolded. The mansion trembled around us, and the shadows grew heavier. I turned to face the oncoming storm, feeling Mia's determination surge beside me like an electric current. Together, we raced down the hallway, a whirlwind of emotions propelling us forward, the collapsing past whispering sweet promises of freedom. Mia squeezed my hand, and for a heartbeat, all fears slipped away, leaving us in the journey we were forging together, a journey not solely built on the chains of our pasts but on the potential for bright tomorrows yet unbroken. No matter what happens, I won't retreat from my truth. Her eyes burned with certainty, and I felt the warmth of her spirit fighting back the darkness. Not now, not ever, I vowed, and with that we propelled forward across the remnants of despair, blazing into the night, all destinies unfolding in our stead, ancient scars unwrapped, bound together through the passage of love transformed. Somewhere behind us, a final crash echoed through the crumbling mansion, the voice of the world once defined by chains of silence fading into the distance. Ahead lay a future unbound, a tender promise held tightly between our fingers, ready to embrace the dawn of new possibilities. And in that moment, we could finally breathe.